Good morning, friends. My name's Justin. Welcome to my channel. I play guitar on songs in Nashville, and today I wanted to answer some questions that I get on various videos. I've had one that I've wanted to get to for a long time, so I'm going to start with that one. This is on an older short of mine called Easy Way to Come Up with a Hook. And basically, in a minute, I try to describe how I go from a chord progression to some sort of melodic hook. And I think a hook, if you were to distill it down into its most basic, fundamental form, it's a simple repeating melody that grabs you, okay? So usually it repeats as the chords change underneath it. It feels familiar. That helps lend to it feeling familiar. And it's just simple and something that sort of catches the ear, okay? So on this song, in this short, I was playing over just a real simple G, E minor, C, D. That was the hook that I came up with for that chord progression. You know, that's cool. That's a good example of a hook. Well, I got this comment. This is from Easy There. He says, how about for G for 4 counts, and then C to G, C to G to D. That's a very country chord progression, by the way. He says, I'm stuck in this finger-picked 1-3-5 thing, so I don't know if he's going something like that. I don't know. Yeah, that's not very hooky. That's just arpeggiating the chords. For me, I would just figure out some sort of melody. And if I were on a session and recording a song with this chord progression, I played this chord progression a lot, by the way. It would be informed by what the vocal's doing, always. But I would do something like this. It's a hook, right? Like, it's very singable. You know, it's very, very traditional. That's what I would do over that song. So let's look at some other comments here. Comments, contains questions, public subscribers. There's a hint. If you want me to answer your question, you should subscribe. This is on my video where I talked about the best solo tone settings that you're not using on a deluxe reverb, and that's with the volume and the treble cranked and the bass on 1. I have a cool t-shirt with that setting, by the way, if you want to check it out in my little store. You can, it's probably right under the video or in the description. This question is from Dave A. Rooney. Did you go into the same input with all 3 guitars? Curious if you use input 2 with the Les Pauls. All same input. You know, for that setting in particular, I'm going for maximum gain. I have the amp completely on dimed, on 10, treble, dimed, bass all the way off. And yeah, I'm showing that that amp, despite what most people use it for, which is totally different, it actually has a really great sustainy, articulate rock guitar sound built into it. You just got to crank it up. So you either have to have a cabinet in another room or be running into like an aux box or something like that, you know. So I was going for all the sustain and articulate, you know, overdrive that comes from the amp. So no, I'm not going to use a lower input. That would defeat the purpose to me. And I just generally don't do that at all. I usually stay in the first input on all my amps, and I let whatever guitar I grab sort of determine how much I'm going to smack the front end of that input, you know, because P90s are going to hit it harder than a Strat, right? But then also I control that at the volume knob and the tone knob on the guitar. I don't do a lot of input switching, you know. I prefer using the guitar controls, using pedals as boosts, you know, or whatever. So I'm not a big moving inputs around guy at all. Let's see, how about some more? Leviti Chris, or Leviti, Leviti? I'm guessing it's Leviti Chris. Would you do a video on tips for people who want to use amps but need to keep relatively low volume at home? Gear recommendations, technique, etc. Great idea. I've been meaning to do a video about this for a while. There are two things that change drastically from where I like to have an amp set to when I need to be ultra quiet. Number one, I can't get power section distortion just by having a non-master amp turned down. And then even with a master volume, it ends up sounding weird. It just always sounds different. When I have an amp set on the edge of breakup, which is where I like it, I can get more gain by digging in, or I can make it cleaner by backing off in the right hand. You know, that's what I like. When I have to be real quiet, it's hard to get that because the amp's not turned up enough to make the tubes break up, right? So a really low volume, quiet, dead clean amp is going to affect everything, you know? The way that I like to use overdrive pedals doesn't work. I usually have the output level up pretty hot on my overdrive pedals and the gain down a lot. Well, in a dirty amp, that pushes the front of the amp and the overdrive pedal mixes with the power tube distortion and gives you this nice tone, right? Well, if your amp's dead clean and you have the level turned way up, you're just going to have a massive volume jump. You know, there's enough headroom left in the amp that it can just increase the volume without the tubes breaking up, right? When the tubes are breaking up, you don't get much louder, you just get dirtier, right? You get all that harmonic content around the note that you want. So I would have to reset all of my pedals. So I'll talk about that. The second thing is when I'm using an amp on the edge of breakup, it's hitting a speaker hard enough to make the speaker break up as well. And I don't really play speakers that don't break up, you know? There's the EV12L or EVM12L, I can't remember what it is, but I have one of those. I don't ever use it. It's dead clean. Like, it's a 200 watt speaker and you cannot hit it hard enough to make it break up, basically. So a lot of what I really like about greenbacks and about Celestian blues and all their variants is that they have this pleasing breakup to them. Some of them is not pleasing, you know. Low wattage Jensen's not pleasing when they break up. But a greenback, Warehouse ET65, which is loosely based on a greenback, a Celestian blue, a Celestian gold, these have speaker breakup. And if you're dialing the amp way down, it's going to be different. You know, for me, the smoothness of like the overdrive and the harmonic goodness around the note comes from an amp on the edge of breakup into a speaker that's breaking up, and me being able to control it all by the knobs on my guitar, the way I dig in, and how I use pedals to push the amp. So if you are in a situation where you can't do that, and whenever I'm in a situation that I can't do that, I have to change a few things. So this is worth a video topic, and I will do that in the future. Man, same thing, same topic from Tai Swan. I'm totally butchering that. I don't even know if half of y'all's YouTube handles are supposed to be read, or if or if I'm supposed to say the letters and then, or you know. Anyway. He says, Justin, I heard you say this a few times. I'm playing through a slightly dirty amp. How do you get a clean tone from that setting? Just wanted to know why you prefer dirty tone as your bass for your guitar sound. You do hear clean tones from me. It just means that I like to be able to control it with my right hand dynamics and with the knobs on the guitar. I like getting all that harmonic goodness when I dig in, when I really smack the strings. I like it being sort of you know, clean plus when I dial that back. You know, when you're hearing clean guitar sounds on my channel, I'm not changing the amp settings. I'm still playing through a dirty amp. I've still got pedals on, or maybe not, you know. But I'm dialing things back. I'm cleaning it up where I have control without having to go over to the amp and turn it down or whatever. I like the way everything interacts. My volume knob, my right hand, the amp, the pedals pushing the amp, all that has to happen into a slightly dirty amp. So it doesn't mean I can't get clean tone. It just means that I don't have the amp set dead clean. So I just get it by the way that I play. Did you do a video on why you chose the ET65 speaker? This is from C. Gavin 1. Is it because you found it to be the most versatile? I hear it has a relatively level EQ. I didn't do a video on that, and I answered his question. I said, yeah, that's basically it. It's not ice picky, and there's no unpleasant frequencies, and when it breaks up a bit, it's really smooth. Yeah, that's just it. I feel like all my guitars and all my amps sound like themselves through that speaker. And nothing peaks in an unpleasant way. There's no like real brittle top end or real honky mids or anything kind of low and farty. It's very even, it's very smooth. It sounds good clean, it sounds good pushed, and then it doesn't take over my tone. So I really like it. How would you write, oh, this is on my How to Write a Nashville Number chart. How would you write this out if there was a borrowed chord? And he writes out four chords: E, G, A, B. And he says, would the G be a 3 flat, key of E? I'm like, yes, exactly. That's what I would write on a number chart. I'd write 1, flat 3, 4, 5, 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, that's a C chord, flat 7, D, flat 6, flat 3, 1. Unless there was like some really crazy say I started going flat 3, flat 6 to flat 7. I'd probably call a modulation on the chart and write that as a 1-4-5 in G. But if you're just borrowing some chords, or if you're not hanging out on them for very long, then yeah, that's a flat 3, flat 6, flat 7, you know, 5 minor, 4, 1. That's exactly what I would do. How often are you changing strings? Every session? I have extremely dry hands. They stay until they don't intonate anymore. That's really it. Usually a few weeks at the very least, longer on baritones. Oh, okay, here's one. Erwin Addison, 2030. This is on a video called Remote Sessions, How Only 2 Players Track an Entire Song. And in the thumbnail I said, let's break this down. He says, care to share the name of the songwriter? No, I didn't think so, with like a single tear emoji. And I didn't know how to take this because I don't put this stuff out trying to hide things from anybody, okay? I only post stuff that I'm working on if I feel like I can either... I need to have permission, is what it comes down to. I don't post any information without permission. So if I want to show you what I'm doing on a song and I don't have permission from that producer, artist, label, management, whatever, I am going to mute the vocal. I'm going to mute so many things so that the song itself is hidden. It is not, I'm not giving anything away. And then I'm going to use that to talk about whatever I want to talk about or teach or show you or whatever. In the event that I get permission to post it, absolutely, I'm going to do that. But you have to understand that most of what you're hearing that I'm working on, this is in the pre-release stage. I cannot give away information. I can't tell you the name of the song and the artist, hey, so-and-so is going to release this song called this. I can't do that. So this comment makes me feel like he thinks that I'm trying to keep information from people, or I'm trying to not credit people, you know, like it's like I'm stealing a meme without giving the place that I got the meme from. That's not it at all. Like I can show you guys how I work to some extent, but I can't give stuff away before it's released. It's that simple, and I'm not going to do that. So, you know, if somebody comes back and comments on a video that's old and I know the song's out, yeah, I'll answer that for sure. You know, hey, yeah, this has been out for a few months now. It's this song by this artist or whatever. A lot of them are demos too, and you're never going to hear them because they are for demonstration purposes only. That's where the word demo comes from. And those are used to pitch to an artist. And then if that artist chooses those songs, 99.99% of the time, they recut it with their producer, with their band, in their key, with whatever changes they want to make or whatever. So at the end of the day, I am a session guitar player more than I'm a YouTuber, okay? So the YouTube thing is very much part-time. My bread and butter is still playing on songs. And so I have to protect what I'm playing on as well as I can. And that means that there's a ton of songs that I play on that you just don't get to hear. You don't get to hear anything because I can't mute the vocal, or it's so, I don't know, anything that's going to come out from an artist on a label, I'm not going to do a video on at all. I can't do it. Copyright issues, all sorts of stuff. I have to mute so many things in the song that it does not become a copyright issue. I don't want to get a bunch of strikes on my channel and get shut down, you know. So I hope that makes sense, Erwin Addison. I'm not trying to not give people credit. I'm trying to show people how I work and protect unreleased material in the process. And that's paramount for my job. So, all right. When you record a track, do you record in a mono or stereo track? I am almost always mono. This is from Mike Anthony, 5581. Almost always mono. Stereo recording, I don't know. Maybe it's because we almost never do that in town. On a session in Nashville, electric guitar is mono, acoustic. He might be on 2 tracks, but he's listening mono. They're summed to 1 track. And, you know, in our cue box, we've got acoustic on 1 fader. We've got electric on 1 fader. Bass gets a fader. Vocal gets a fader. Pedal steel, click. And then the stereo faders, keys gets a stereo mix. Drums gets a stereo mix. And then there's the master. And generally the mix, some of these cue systems only have one. There's a master volume, and then there's a mix, and then there's individual channels. In those situations, guitars and bass and vocal and click get their own channels. And sometimes keys will get a mono channel. I know they don't like that because they're putting out these big stereo pads or stereo, you know, synth parts or whatever. But you generally, the mix, it also depends on the engineer. Sometimes the mix is so good, you don't even turn up any of the individual faders at all because it sounds like you're listening to a record as you play. That's amazing. And then sometimes some other engineers will say, well, that's just going to be for drums. The stereo mix is just for the drummer. He doesn't have his own mono fader like guitar, electric guitar, acoustic guitar, and bass and whatever. So I'm spoiled by the private cue system. I think it's really, really, really great. It's got 2 stereo mixes, 8 mono channels, and a master. It's really good. I mean, even for a large band, like I typically have a fader for my first part, a fader for my second part. If I do a third part, they dump the second part into the first fader too, so they're both there and I can have a clean reference for the part I'm currently tracking. Keys will get their own stereo mix, but really, like, that's the way everybody's used to working. Engineers are going to do what they want to do with guitar stems after we're all done. And I don't want to back an engineer into a corner and say, here's a stereo mix. Here, I printed this guitar part with this big ping-pongy stereo delay or whatever. That's going to force his hand, you know, in terms of how he mixes it. So I just do mono tracks. Even with reverb, I will do a mono track. With delay, I do a mono track. I try not to go overboard on the mix because I don't know what kind of compression or EQ the engineer is going to put on it. So I'm trying not to back them into a corner with those sorts of things as well. Let's get a couple more here. Execute your parts like a studio pro. This is an overdub sessions video, a recent one. AFT41 says, good video, Justin. Thank you. You are down picking all the notes. Why not alternate picking? Thanks. And for that riff, it was like I was doing a, I think I was playing a rhythm part. And I was downstroking, right? Instead of... Well, I think you can hear, just in those two examples of what I just played, why. With a when you're downstroking, you get more energy. It's more aggressive. You hear the low note first on every attack, right? When you're alternate picking a chord, it's subtle, but the second time when you upstroke, you hear the high note first. So this is not as rock and roll as that. That's it. That's why. All right, one more. Let's see here. There was one that I passed that I wanted to get to at the very end. Aha! This is from this guy's YouTube handle. Maybe he came up with this in middle school. I don't know. Mr. Buttfaceable. He says, man, I don't recognize half the chords you play. And this is on an older video. This is Overdub Sessions 19. What do you play over major seventh chords that aren't in the same key? And I think I had a song where it was like... lots of major sevens everywhere. Like, how do you come up with a part that weaves through it when they all sort of belong? You can't think of a key itself. And that's a great video, actually. It's back when I was filming with the front-facing camera of my iPad just set up on my desk, and you were hearing what I was hearing in the room coming out of my monitors. Very low-tech, low production value, high content value, though. That's my goal. Not to get too crazy on the video production, but just to have really good content. Well, this is a really great question. He says, do you almost exclusively play inversions and those little 2 to 3 note voicings? Are there any good resources for where to study that stuff? I love your playing. You're an incredibly musical guitar player. Thank you, Mr. Buttfaceable. Yeah, so this question has to deal with what I'm trying to do right now. I am trying to map out a course that I can offer. I want it to be something that gives people, and this may be revisiting, pardon me, it may be revisiting fundamentals, but it gives people the fundamentals to be a creative musician, okay? And what I mean by that is, like, how can I help you do what you like so much that you hear me do, okay? Like, what got you into it? What got us all into music? That's a more broad question, right? Broad-based question. Usually, it's hearing something that created a response within us, an involuntary response, right? And then we're like, I have to figure that out. I have to figure out how to do that. I have to get that feeling again. And then you explore other music and you figure out other things and you sort of build your own voice out of imitating all these other things that you've heard. And that's how 99% of us get involved, right? Something affects us emotionally, internally. It rearranges things inside of us in a way that we don't know how to do without that, you know? And that's why I think music is such a gift. Like, it can help you sort through things without having to articulate the way you feel. Like, you can process through so many different events and scenarios and things that make you feel a certain way. Like, it's incredible, right? Well, we all got into music because it started that way with us, right? There was some sort of involuntary reaction. Now I know that some of the things that I play on my channel and people hear and see, they're like, man, that sounds so cool. You're having those reactions to what I'm playing. So my course, and this may feel extremely esoteric, but I want to try to figure out how to give people the fundamentals to play things that are compelling for other people, right? You can make other people sound better. You can make their songs better. You can make them feel things. If you know what to play, if you know how to come up with something on the spot. So those sort of fundamentals for creative playing, that's what I want to get into. And to tie this back in with this question, yeah, I often play dyads, two-note voicings that are just a piece of a chord, or triads that are a piece of a chord. Sometimes I play triads over other triads when I'm trying to create the impression of an extended chord. Because at the same time that I'm playing, I'm also processing all the information of what I'm playing too, right? So for me, what I'm thinking about and what I'm doing on the guitar, it comes down to knowing I just have the entire key that I'm in on the fretboard. And I know there's some videos, you know, that people put out that are like, once you learn this, it's easy. Once you learn this, something's really easy. And it's like, I don't know. I don't think it is. I don't think it's easy. I don't think there are shortcuts. There are ways that I can help you. And that's what I want to figure out for my first course. I have stopped and started filming stuff for courses like 5 times. I just don't like it, you know. So I guess I have a question for you all to close this video out. What do you think is missing in the YouTube educational space? I don't think that I need to offer something that's wildly different. I need to offer my take on these topics, you know, that we all sort of talk about and we listen to guitar instructors about, you know, like the cage system. You know, I stumbled into my own version of that, and I could teach that. That could be part of a thing that I do. But, you know, I've always kind of felt that the unlocking the fretboard, or here's a lick, or accelerate your blues phrasing, like that stuff's covered to me, you know. What I think's not covered is how do I play in a way that makes people want to have me in their band, that makes their songs sound better, that makes them have that involuntary reaction. How do I play compelling parts, you know? And it does come down to chords. I'm constantly thinking chords. I'm never thinking scales. I'm never thinking modes. Modes, I was focused on modes for the majority of my teenage years. Like, if I could just understand this, it would unlock everything. That set me back, to be honest. And there's nothing that makes me check out more than hearing somebody sound like they're playing scales and modes and just like up and down. Like I know there's people who love that, especially when it's really clean and executed really well, and that's just a different thing. I'm just not into that myself. But for me, it's chords, it's knowing all of the relationships to whatever position and whatever key I'm playing in, you know, that's it. And being able to process the information of what I'm playing along to in terms of like, hey, this is an energetic song, the lyrics are celebratory, this is happy, how do I add, you know, excitement to that? Because if I don't add excitement and I add something that is contrary to those emotions from all this other stuff that I'm processing from the drum pattern and the lyrical content and everything else, then I'm not doing my job. You know, I can't confuse the vibe of the song. And I can reach into chord shapes and what I know about how chords are built to add colors that aren't necessarily there, but that help support the emotion, right? Like maybe the whole band is playing a G triad. Okay, that's cool. Well, what happens if I throw the 9 over that, you know, or the 7? or a flat 7. Like, what does that imply? Well, it implies different chords, right? I'm creating extensions over what the rest of the band is playing. So with that, once again, what do you think's missing? What would you like to hear from? What would you like a course on? I know a lot of people ask about recording techniques at home and stuff like that, and I think that's great. I think that'd be a great mini course or whatever. So my goal is to build a bunch of content. Once I get a first course out of the way and I figure out how to do it all, they'll start coming. And I'm going to build all this content up behind a paywall and then ask you guys to take a chance on it. And if you don't like it, great, refund, you know. But I will be following that model, basically. So anyway, I think I've rambled long enough. I will see you guys later. Have a good one.